Eventually, I promise, you will be able to buy a graphics card again, whenever you want to, at MSRP. Now, while right now that might seem like a far-off fantasy world, I promise it is going to happen. And when that time comes, I guarantee you that there will be a lot of people looking to upgrade systems that they built 5, 6, 7 years ago, and pairing their brand new GPU with a CPU from that time frame. So today we're going to look at what happens when you build a system that has a brand new RTX 3090 and a CPU from 6 years ago. Introducing Corsair's new 4000 series of cases, sporting your choice of understated front panel, tempered glass and RGB, or full mesh for max airflow. All the 4000 series options come with easy-to-use cable routing channels, tool-free tempered glass side panels, and feature Corsair's modern, compact layout. The best part? They start at only $80. Check out the link below or head to Corsair.com to learn more. So if you guys are new here, or even if you've been here before but aren't yet subscribed, please consider hitting that button down there. It does help the channel out a ton. It is a tough time right now to be building a PC or even just looking to upgrade 1 or 2 components in your existing system. I know, I've been there. I've tried to purchase some hardware and have been absolutely unable to. It's unfortunate that a lot of these products are being scooped up either by bots or scalpers or crypto miners. Eventually things will change. This has happened before. It happened in 2017, 2018 with the original crypto mining boom. Things come back to normal eventually, and we will see these products back on shelves. And when that happens, I guarantee you there are a lot of people out there who are still using this platform or similar who are going to look to upgrade their GPU and play at either a higher resolution or a higher refresh rate. Is that a good idea? Let's put this system together and then compare the performance against a newer, more modern platform using the same GPU. Let's start by taking a look at the hardware we're going to be using today. And this is from Be Quiet. This is their brand new Silent Base 802. And I really do like the direction that Be Quiet has chosen to go in with this, because it's a $160 case, but it is very fully featured, and it comes with the option for you to use either this full mesh front panel or this solid panel, which is fully sound dampened. So this actually comes pre-installed, and then this comes in the box, and it's super easy just to pop it right on and off. It's no screws or anything like that. You just kind of pull it off, put it back on. And the version that we have here today is actually the one without the side panel tempered glass window, which is something that you don't often see, but I actually had requested this from Be Quiet because I don't have a whole lot of cases that are just silence focused. And both of these panels come off with this really easy to use system where you just press the button and it pivots right off. And again, both of these case panels they have sound dampening foam that's like crazy thick. So then the interior of the case is also very well thought out and laid out in a very useful way. You could add drive cages over here. The case comes with one of these that you could kind of populate through. It also comes with the PWM fan hub, and the I/O on the top is pretty robust as well. So we've got 2 USB-A over here, hard drive activity light, reset switch, power switch, separate headphone and mic jacks, USB-C, and also a fan controller. So you can go with auto, so that's PWM controlled, or speeds 1, 2, or 3. The top also is interchangeable. You could use this dust filter. You could use nothing if you just want to have the best airflow, or it has these pieces that you could put on there for, again, a more silence focused build. Check out this motherboard that we have going on here. This is from Asus. This is their Sabertooth 990FX Revision 2 board. You don't really see motherboards that look like this anymore, with the black PCB and the brown and tan accents all over it, including on the VRM heatsinks. This is a 2-tone VRM heatsink with the heat pipe over here, and then you have like a tan, a brown, a black, tan, brown. So strange, but I think it looks really cool considering that it's just something that you don't see at all anymore. Motherboard manufacturers aren't doing this kind of coloring on any kind of products that I can remember recently. And to be honest, The color scheme might actually blend pretty well with the kind of copper-ish appearance of our RTX 3090 FE. But given that we are trying to bottleneck the 3090, or at least seeing what would happen, we're going to use a processor that I think is fairly old, but is reasonable for a lot of people to still have and use. This is from AMD. It's their 8370. Now, I tested this out on the channel last year, where I was trying to overclock it as high as it would go. I got it up to 5.3 gigahertz, and even that really didn't make a whole lot of difference when it came to running modern games. The IPC on it is just so incredibly low that even if you clock it up super high, it's really not going to compete with even anything like a modern Ryzen 3 chip. So I think that this will be a good test to see how badly we could bottleneck the 3090 at all resolutions using a chip that I think some people probably still are using. For memory in this build, we're going to use a 2x8 kit of Corsair Dominator Platinum. This is the original Dominator Platinum DDR3. This is 1866 speed CL10, so super tight timings, but not all that fast, especially compared to modern memory, which is, 3600 is kind of becoming the standard. But still really good DDR3 memory and will pair really well with our board and chip. Storage, super simple, one 960 gig SSD. There is no M.2 support on this motherboard at all. This was before the time of M.2s, and this is what we're gonna have to use, just a regular SATA 3 SSD, and should do just fine. The 8370, however, does draw a good amount of power, but also runs pretty warm. So in order to try to control temps, we're going to use a 360mm all-in-one liquid cooler. This is the Deepcool Captain 360EX White. I had bought this a few months ago for use in another project, never ended up using it. It's actually still sealed, but I think it'll go really well. I don't see any problems, or I don't foresee running into any problems with our 8370. This should provide plenty of cooling and mount really nicely and go really well with the color scheme of our Silent Base 802. 750 watts of power should be plenty. This is from Ripjaws, their PS750G. It's 80 plus gold rated. It is fully modular. I think one of the cables in here is ketchup and mustardy, but I hope that that's just like the Molex connector. Even so, we're building in a case with no side panel window, so I don't know that it matters all that much anyway. And then we got the last piece of our build, obviously our RTX 3090 Founders Edition. If I could get this open with one hand, that would be amazing. I can, look at that. So this is probably something that you guys are very familiar with, but yeah, RTX 3090, probably the most powerful consumer graphics card on the market right now. It's got some lighting here and then some over here as well. But again, we aren't going to be able to see any of that. It's going to be inside of this case. And even though this kind of matches, look at the color. Sort of kind of goes with the color scheme of the motherboard. What do you guys think? So yeah, RTX 3090, FX 8370, a terrible pairing that we're going to try to make work right now.
Yikes. This was definitely an interesting video to put together. It clearly illustrated the differences between an older platform and a newer one. It used to be that you could run almost any processor you wanted if you wanted to game at higher resolutions, because the games would be almost entirely limited to GPU performance, and CPUs would rarely factor in at all. Now, when you got down to lower resolutions, 1080p, maybe sometimes 1440p, you could see some differences. But they weren't enough where you would say you can't really get away with a lower end or older chip. Well, times have certainly changed, and the performance of our 8370 system was, in a word, terrible. Originally, I had planned to run 8 to 10 games and test their performance in all 3 resolutions. So because of that, I figured this video would be pretty long and you didn't see a build time lapse as a result. But now I'm kind of wishing that I did one, because after I ran 4 of my tests, I just stopped. It was extremely evident what was happening. Every single game at every single resolution is limited by this CPU. Now, these are more modern titles. They do require more than single core performance, But even a game that would lean on single core performance would not necessarily do very well with this 8370 because the system that we were comparing it to was a modern high-end gaming system with an i9-10900KF. So after I ran my first 4 tests, which were Strange Brigade, Metro Exodus, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and a game that I can't remember, Ghost Recon Wildlands, it was easy to see the trend. Let's start by taking a look at Strange Brigade. The game that performs the best gives us the highest frame rate across every single resolution with an RTX 3090. And as you can see, that wasn't necessarily the case with the 8370. It just didn't perform any better or really any worse no matter the resolution because the game was so CPU limited. We saw the same kind of thing with Shadow of the Tomb Raider, 65 frames per second at every resolution. I ran these tests multiple times to verify, and every single one of them came out with either 64, 65, or 66 frames per second at 1080p, 1440p, and 4K. I was so shocked that I was getting the exact same result that I just kept running the test again because it didn't make any sense. At least I thought there might be some variation, but there really was not at all. Meanwhile, the newer system was definitely putting up a lot better frame rates in every single resolution and also saw appropriate scaling between them. Moving over to Metro Exodus, we saw basically the exact same thing, could not even crack 60 FPS even at 1080p with an RTX 3090, no DirectX ray tracing features enabled, no DLSS enabled, and it was pretty pathetic what we were getting out of this system. And then the worst performing game was Ghost Recon Wildlands. Again, no real difference no matter the resolution, where you saw a lot better performance and appropriate scaling with a modern hardware setup. So if you are out there and you are gaming on an older AMD Piledriver or Bulldozer chip like this 8370, or you have something from this era, it is not a good idea to go out and buy a modern graphics card. You are going to be limited no matter the resolution that you're gaming at. Even if you say that you're going to be gaming at 4K and you think that you're just gonna pop a 3080 into your system and it'll be all good, you're not going to get anywhere near the appropriate level of performance that you would with a modern hardware setup. So clearly, the thing to do is upgrade your platform first and then move on to your GPU after that. Another thing that I noticed when running through all my tests were that load times were crazy long. I was definitely not expecting to sit around and just wait for games to load. In fact, I had to do a couple updates in the background because this was an SSD that had a Windows install on it. I had to uninstall an old display driver, I had to reinstall a new one, I had to download a Windows update, and that all took so long, which is why this video is publishing way later than it normally does. But just taking a look at the build, again, this case looks really good, and it was incredibly quiet when the system was up and running. Also, the interior layout is really well thought out. Be Quiet did, once again, a great job with this case, and even our color scheme kinda sorta came together, even though you can't see it. The one thing that I will say is that there is a slight color differential between the plastic parts of this case and the metal parts of this case, even though it's all pretty much white. The plastic parts have kind of a yellowish hue on them, and I'm not entirely sure if this was because this was a pre-production sample or because that's just the way the manufacturing is going to be. I'm gonna reach out to Be Quiet and ask them, but in the meantime, it still looks pretty good, and if you're not inspecting it super close up, you really can't tell. And this case is definitely well put together and well built. So that is a wrap on our Bottleneck build. What did you guys think? Are any of you running a CPU similar to this who were maybe considering upgrading to a new Ampere or big Navi GPU? Does this make you reconsider? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, as we mentioned earlier, don't forget to get subscribed to the channel if you like this kind of content, and I'll see you next week for a new video. Thanks for watching.